Welcome to the Game Forum. I'm Lindsay. Today I'm going to be doing a review for Gorn on the PlayStation 4. To start off, the graphics are definitely not the best, but it doesn't really hurt the game either. It has an interesting cartoon-like style, and believe it or not, this actually works with its hyper-violent Mortal Kombat style, tearing people to shreds kind of mechanics. So it really works. Especially in the PlayStation VR's lower resolution screens, this comes off looking great. One thing that is a little bit annoying though is the audio in this game. There's no background soundtrack. You don't really notice it at first, but as you start playing, it kind of makes the game feel a little bit dull. It's nice just to have some kind of intense music going on while you're fighting all these enemies coming at you, and maybe scale with a level of intensity depending on what kind of combat you're encountering at the moment. That would have been a really nice touch. Where the real meat of the game lies is in its gameplay. It's a really fun experience. Essentially, it drops you into a gladiatorial arena, and you have to choose different weapons and fight to the death. It starts off pretty easy. The AI is really dumb. They're liable to hurt themselves just as much as they're liable to hurt you. But as they start getting more armor and more varied weapons, and come at you at increasingly larger numbers, they start posing a real threat. This can definitely make for some really intense moments when you start getting surrounded, trying to fight off and parry everyone swinging weapons at you wildly. One thing I don't like as much is its health system in this game. Once you get hit, your screen starts turning red as you bleed out, and it gets harder and harder to see until you die and restart from the next checkpoint. I would have much rather had some type of health bar in this, as where there was a couple of times where I'd kill one enemy as he hit me, and have to run over halfway across the level to get to the next enemy before bleeding out. It makes for a high level of intensity, but also can give you some really annoying moments depending on when you happen to get hit. Another thing this game could have really used is more varieties in the enemies. They're pretty much all the same giant brute person except for some of the boss fights. They do mix this up a little bit by adding in armor and a good variety of weapons. And this gets to another thing that I really liked about the game. There is a huge variety of weapons. Most of the time, it'll have you start a fight by picking up the weapons it wants you to use. Several times, I just did not care for the weapon it wanted me to use that round. So instead, I ditched it and picked up a weapon that I got from killing someone else. This really helps get you through some of those weapons you just really don't want to use. So it's much appreciated that they give you the option to pick up weapons from people you've killed. However, it would have been really nice if you could have a snap feature to grab them without having to bend all the way over. Because another really annoying thing about this game is it constantly gives you a blue force field look anytime you start to reach out of bounds. Even if it still has full tracking, it just kind of takes you out of the game a little bit. I wish there was an option to turn this off, or at least extend its range to where it was actually out of bounds. It's just a little disorienting and kind of pulls me out of the game because it does it a lot. It's a very narrow box it wants you to stay in for such a motion-based game. And this game does require you to move a lot. It gets to be a lot of exercise if you play it enough. You can really feel it in your arms. You can't just sit there and move the controller a little bit. It really won't connect in with the hit. You really have to put a little bit of force into it. Different weapons also react differently depending on how you use them. For example, if you just use a mace, it's great for taking off armor and is a bit of a blunt impact instrument and deals a lot of damage. But it still takes a couple hits to really put somebody down, and you can't really dismember somebody with something like a blunt object like a mace or a bat. To contrast that with a sword, if you put enough force behind it, you can actually take off their arms or legs, or even just completely dismember them. Although it will take some extra hits to try and get some of that armor off. But since you can have two weapons, I like having an impact weapon in one hand and a blade in the other hand. That was kind of my favorite combination. Although, anytime I could pick up a bow and arrow, it was always fun to mess around with that for a little bit. Trying to shoot someone in the head with an arrow and then rush over to them and pick it up to use on someone else before they get to you. It was a lot of fun. The movement system in this game is a bit different, but it worked fine for what it was trying to do. Instead of having a button to just go forward or a button to go backward, you have to hold the move button to pull yourself forward. It really makes you feel like a heavy, lumbering soldier, just like the people you're fighting against. And again, it gives you a lot more exercise playing this game as well. As you continue to go through the campaign, there's a couple of boss fights you have at the end of each stage. There's not a lot of them, and it is a pretty short campaign, but the boss fights are kind of quirky and fun. It has a real crazy sense of humor to it. Also, as you progress through the campaign, you're unlocking all the weapons to be used in a custom mode. This custom mode gives the game a good bit of replayability, especially, I would say, among friends. This is a game that'd be a lot of fun to go in, unlock everything, and then invite some friends over to try it out in VR. That way you can give them different weapons, put them in different scenarios, and just go crazy with all the customizable settings in it. So overall, I really like its cartoon-like aesthetic and extreme blood and gore. I really kind of wish there was some music in this game. It starts getting old, especially as you play it for a while. But overall, it is a really fun experience and will give you a lot of exercise. I kind of wish they had a little bit more variety of enemies, but I do like the concept. There's a ton of variety of weapons, and the custom mode, where you keep unlocking things, really gives it a lot more replayability. Overall, I would highly rate this game. It's not very expensive, it's only about $20 right now. And if you can get it on a sale for even cheaper, I'd definitely say it's worth it. This is definitely one to play with friends. Whenever you have some people over and want them to try out some VR games, it's just a real fun, quirky game that they can get into and understand the concepts. Tell me what you think about Gorn in the comments down below. And until next time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.